A bus pulls into the square at dusk. The brakes make a noise. The bus doors open. And before anyone gets off, a dog is already there. He shows up from the same spot he always does. He leans forward. He looks at every face as he was studying them. Not quickly, not too much, but with care. He believes that the person he desires might still appear if he searches diligently. No one calls to him. No one smiles at him. Nobody tells him to go home, because by then, everyone in the village already knows what he's up to. He is waiting for one man. He is waiting for a man who didn't get off from the bus yesterday, a man that won't get off it tonight, the man that hasn't returned home in a long time. And yet, the dog comes back to the same spot at the same time, into the same quiet. Fido was his name. He was just a small stray dog in Italy during the war, before he became a monument and a story that spread far beyond this square. Cold, hurt, and half hidden in a ditch near a road outside Borgo San Lorenzo. A town worker, a bricklayer, Carlo, was the one who found him. That day, he wasn't looking for a dog. He was simply on his way, like millions of other people doing ordinary work in an extraordinary century. Then he heard something small, a shy cry, a movement. This was a life that could have been easily overlooked. He stopped. He climbed down. He spotted an injured animal, nearly buried in the mud and weeds, and instead of leaving him there, he picked him up. That is where this story really begins. Not at the bus stop, not at the statue, not at the moment the town finally understood what it was seeing. It begins with one person deciding that a small creature that is in pain mattered. Carlo took the dog home. He gave him food. He held on to him. He gave him a name, Fido. After that, a routine formed. This routine was so normal and insignificant that no one would consider it historical. Every workday, Carlo left for the bus, and every workday, Fido went with him. They walked the same streets, went around the same corners, moved through the same air in the village. Then Carlo boarded the bus, and the dog stayed behind. Not forever, only until evening. This was because the bus returned in the evening, and when it did, Fido was there again, waiting at the stop for the man who had once stopped for him. That is the simplest way to describe the emotional shape of the story. A rescue turned into a bond became a routine, and a routine became a promise. Not once, not as a trick. It was not merely one charming moment that someone noticed. As a habit, this is an expectation built into the day itself. Morning departure, evening return. Then the war moved closer. Not a spectacle. It wasn't a single loud scene designed for a camera. War typically reaches ordinary people more slowly at first, through tension, through shortages, through rumor. This knowledge shows that daily life continues, but no longer on solid ground. Borgo San Lorenzo was not outside history. No village was, and like so many places in Europe during those years, even routine had become fragile without admitting it yet. In December 1943, Carlo was killed in an air raid on the factory where he worked. Fido could not understand that event the way people do. He did not know dates, he did not know military targets, he did not know what had happened miles away in terms that could be explained. He only knew this: the evening came, the bus arrived, the bus doors opened, and the man he came for didn't get off. Maybe he stayed longer that first night. Perhaps he remained after the other passengers had gone. Maybe he kept an eye on the road after the bus had already disappeared. There is no need to dive into details to feel the wound, because what happened next is enough. The next evening, he came back, and the evening after that, and the next one. At first, perhaps the people around him thought it would go away.
that he would learn that the pattern would be broken, that hunger or weather or instinct would eventually pull him somewhere else. But it didn't. One evening became many, many became weeks, weeks became months, and then something harder to measure began to happen. The act of waiting itself became an integral part of the village life. The square changed around him. Rain darkened the stone. Winter settled in. Snow gathered under the sign and then melted away. Spring loosened the cold. Summer dust returned. The light shifted. The years shifted. He kept arriving. There are stories that grow large because they are dramatic. This one grows large because it does not, because it is built from the repetition of one small act performed again and again until repetition itself becomes unbearable. The villagers saw it. The drivers saw it. People who passed through the square saw it. And over time, they stopped treating Fido as a stray who happened to linger near the bus. They understood that he was holding an appointment in his absence. So they began to care for him. They fed him. They watched for him. And in that way, Fido's grief slowly stops belonging to him alone. The town also shares in Fido's grief. Years went by, and as it always does, age began to show on the body that kept coming back. Fido got slower. His steps got stiff. The square that once took little effort to cross asks for more from him now. But loyalty had long since outlived comfort. That is part of why this story is so difficult to shake. He was no longer waiting because it was easy. He was waiting because the bond had become the shape of his life. He was remembered in bronze. This honor is not because a monument can repay devotion. The monument meant something more profound. It meant that what had happened here would not be dismissed as a curiosity and allowed to vanish. It meant that fidelity, once it was clear enough, should have a permanent form. That is why Fido still matters. Not because he understood history, not because he became well known, but in a world torn apart by war, one small creature kept faith with a bond that death had broken, and a whole community chose not to turn away from that faith. A bus pulls into the square. The bus doors open. The place where he waited is still there. And even now, the story asks the same quiet question it did back then. What does love look like when only one side can still return?
This is PaperWitness, where real stories are drawn, remembered, and brought to life.
PaperWitness.